Welcome to MidLIFE Matters, where we celebrate women's wisdom and wit. I'm Georgian Lussier, your host, and I'm delighted to introduce today's guest, Eileen Cassello. Eileen is a career woman, a caregiver, and a photo enthusiast, and she's here to share her story with us. Welcome, Eileen.
Thank you very much. How are you?
Great. I'm delighted to have you on the show.
Thanks.
We started together at Aetna. I had been there a number of years. It's now been like 30 years.
Yes.
And we had that grand adventure with self-managed teams and progressive management and work process improvement. Since then, you've pretty much stayed at Aetna. I know you've had a break in service. So tell the viewers about some of the types of jobs and work you've done over the years.
I've been in 4 different areas within Aetna. First, the claim office with you, and then I moved on to banking, where I was responsible for balancing a budget, $6 million each month. I also moved into the IT organization in the year 2000 and did business analysis type work, be a liaison between business and the IT organization. And also I moved over to the business side, still supporting from an IT perspective, and I've been there in that arena for 16 years.
And what types of skills have you been required to learn and perfect through those roles?
So I've learned that I need to be more precise with the written word as well as speaking, becoming more analytical and mean what you say and listen more intently, because connotations can be vastly different. So when you're doing system development, it's crucial that you get that right.
And how would you say the workplace has changed over the 30 years?
Well, it's changed significantly, and I don't know if you remember, we used to wear business suits.
I remember.
That environment is gone. It's very business casual now, so in that regard alone, it's just vastly different. We now have more work-at-home opportunities. I've been very lucky and have been doing work at home for a number of years. Most of it was during my years I was raising children, so for me that was very beneficial, helpful to get my kids to the events that they needed to be at. I think that the company itself has promoted more self-care. We have a thing called Mindful Mondays. So you dial in from your seat or at home, and for a half hour they kind of walk you through a meditation exercise. There are financial rewards for fitness and health. I also noticed our cafeteria has changed greatly to offer healthier food choices. And we also have a caregiver support group that I'm a part of. So tomorrow I'm going to go to a 2-hour segment on dementia and caregiving.
That is quite a change.
Yes.
Certainly from the early years. And what would you say are some of the pluses and minuses of working at home?
Working at home is, I think, very flexible. I'm able to help care for my parents who are older, and the attire is much more casual. I can work in my pajamas if I choose. However, I think that overall socialization has changed. I'm a bit older, so I've already established the relationships and networking that I have in my everyday job, but I do think that for younger people, I think that it's somewhat could be isolating for them. I don't know how it's going to play out in the future of, work at home and how socialization or, this interaction between people will be in years to come.
I know someone shared with me who's in the sales field that one issue they have with attracting people or getting people to be successful, younger people, is that they are lacking the conversational skills that we had, or like we're even having right now,
Right.
because they're more isolated, even on the phones, and the way they communicate with each other. It's not necessarily face-to-face, which a lot of sales is relationship building and face-to-face
Right.
still. So that human connection isn't what it was, from an earlier era. So I thought that was kind of an interesting observation that he made.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. And so as a working mom, what advice would you have for other women that are trying to do it all?
I think the first thing is to focus on your family.
Mm-hmm.
I work for a company that is promoting of, family first. Don't sweat the small stuff. I'm a single mom, and my kids were 3 and 6 when I got divorced. So there were a lot of years that I was in the grind of work, kids, all of that. And the things like what I view like housework and things should be secondary, because I tried to do it all, and I honestly don't think that you can be 100% great at everything.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a give and take relationship, not to beat yourself up so much.
Mm-hmm.
I think as women we tend to think that we need to do it all and do it all very well.
Well, naturally, I mean, people don't want to feel that they're giving short shift to either side. And as you say, family is so important, but work is very compelling.
Yes?
And then all of the tasks of daily living, right?
Well, and I think being able to work from home offers that flexibility that I was able to do some work in the evening when the kids were asleep.
Mm-hmm.
So I might have put in 8 hours or more because I had access to be able to work at any time.
It's so interesting because I remember when computers were first going to the desktops, because it used to be, the data processing department
Right.
kind of held on to everything. And the idea of having been in human resources, helping managers have people work at home, there was a lot of concern. How would we know they're working? It was just such a cultural or kind of perspective shift. And now it's almost like some people are required to work at home.
I was one of those required to work at home. I do go in 1 day a week, and that's more from a team building perspective and the
Mhm.
socialization. I think that people view because I work at home, that I'm really not working. And
People in your outer life?
well, even within my own family,
Right.
yes, they don't see the, late hours that I might put in, or
Mhm.
I don't usually take a break. It's, I've worked a 12-hour day, but because I'm at home, it seems devalued in some way. So
Interesting.
that's still kind of out there as a misnomer, I think, because at Aetna there are awards that have been given for people that have teleworked. The whole idea is to get more value, from a happier employee.
Mhm.
And that was kind of like the claim office that we tried to do, to get more value out of people by giving them the opportunities to make decisions and to be self-managed and that kind of stuff.
Right, and I know some organizations, they have downsized their footprints. I mean, they just don't even have seats for everybody.
And that's true, right?
And so that's a cost savings.
It is a
on their
cost
part.
savings for them. And I just think overall, it's your work-life balance now. It's more attainable, I think, as a woman
Mhm.
who can be raising children as well as have a career because of the flexibility that's offered.
And like many of us, you're also part of a sandwich generation.
Yes, I
I mean,
am.
your kids are not young anymore, but our children are always on our minds. And your folks are older. What resources have you drawn on? You talked about you're going to be going to a caregiver symposium or conference to help kind of summon that inner warrior to take on yet another set of challenges.
Well, a lot of that has to do with my own family structure. I come from a large family. I have 36 first cousins, so we're all fairly close. And I've drawn from other cousins who have had experiences similar to mine. My mother suffers from dementia, so many of their mothers and fathers also have had the same disease, and they've been a little bit further along for me, and I can draw upon that experience. And friendships, of course, are one of the main pillars of my life, I think, in terms of support, as well as in the community that
Right,
it
it's,
is.
well, one woman I had on as a guest was with the South Central
That's it, yeah.
Council on Aging,
Yes.
and I'm going to be sitting on a panel for her, and that's a regional service throughout Connecticut, and they're national as well.
And do they offer support groups for Alzheimer's and dementia? And
Yes,
if that's the
yes.
case, I did go to a 3-part series with my sister, and we kind of learned about Alzheimer's and caregiving and trying to establishing networks and who we can reach out to.
So a real mix of personal and professional resources.
Yes, and there are tons of things online that you could look for. I often look at the test that my mother gets every now and then. It's just kind of a short test to determine her cognitive ability, and it continues to dwindle down. It's out of 30 points, and she's lingering at 12. But when I first tested her, she was at 25. So you see that progression over time, and so you learn about it, and it is part of life, and I can't change it. I can't change where she is at this point. But to learn to accept it and enjoy each day. And she's not in pain. She's happy. So that is very, heartwarming for me just to know that she's okay.
Thank you for sharing that. So in terms of replenishing your own well, you've taken up photography recently.
I have. It was kind of a fluke.
Okay.
One winter, a few winters ago, we were bored sitting at home with all the snow piling up and decided to take a ride down to Hammonasset Beach. My partner Christopher's from the Madison area, and his parents live there as well. And Chris's father is an avid birder. So we went down, and I saw a blue heron in the snow, and I used my phone to take a picture. And when I got back, I was just so excited to see that blurb that I was able to capture that. And Chris's dad is the one who helped me by giving me a camera to use and a lens, and started that way. And then the following week or two, I went down again, and Chris is also a birder and a photographer. So we do that together.
Nice.
It's a way to spend time together and enjoy being outside. Even though it was cold, just getting some fresh air, it cleared my head. It was very stress reducing. And the fact that I was able to capture a moving, something that moves very quickly like a bird. I'm no expert by any means, but I was very excited once I took pictures to come back home and look at my results. And I've gotten better and better, and each time I get a little more critical, I suppose, but Chris's dad has given me a better lens, and so I really enjoy being out with nature, with Chris, and just relaxing that way.
Is it something you had any interest in as a child, or it's just totally a
No,
new?
totally new,
Wonderful.
and I like birds of prey, so I've spent most of my life with my head down. Now I look up, and it's amazing to see all the hawks that go by, and there are things that I want to get closer to, and I rely on Chris's dad to kind of help me. I wanted a picture of an owl. I wanted to see an owl. I'd never seen one before, and so I was able to do that, and that was fascinating to me. Really, really neat.
And we talked a little bit about the importance of other women in our lives,
Yes,
and we're talking about you as someone who seeks to have fun after 50.
absolutely.
So those lasting friendships that can help sustain us, what are some of the observations you have about collaboration and friendships and how we help reinvent ourselves?
So when I was a mom, I stayed at home for several years, and I found myself in a kind of not fulfilling role when I thought that that would be what I should be doing, the June Cleaver kind of role. And I was disappointed when I was not happy with that. And I also suffered from postpartum depression. So once that lifted, I realized that going back to work was helpful. But meanwhile, I joined a support group, stress management women's group. And through that, I have some profound relationships that I have today, 20 years later. Our friendship started on a different level. I was more raw to them, able to convey how I felt, things other women could associate with. I think that my relationships with them are very intimate. I can tell them anything and I don't feel judged. And there are times when they just point blank tell you the absolute truth, even though you don't want to hear it. But overall, I think that having friends of varying ages has been a wonderful gift for me. So one of my close friends is about 18 years older than I am, and that's been very helpful to see what lie ahead for me. And the wisdom from her to me, and that I'm able to offer to the next generation, even my own daughter, of how to try to have fun in very stressful situations or times in your life.
Or maybe in spite of stressful situations.
Absolutely, yeah,
right?
in spite of, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the way to survive and get through some points in time when life changes and you have to accept it. But having fun with my friends and family has been like the mainstay, most important thing for me.
And you also made another comment I thought was very intriguing about the possibility of having wasted time worrying about what other people think about you, and you talked about not being judged.
I think I did spend a number of years feeling incompetent or not very good about myself, low self-esteem. And I think that through relationships that I've had with other women has helped me to realize that I am intelligent and that I can, hold my own in any kind of situation. And I do very well under pressure for the most part. And I think that because of we've done in this support group, I did a lot of role playing and things from business situations like asking for a raise and how do you do that. Those role playing were very critical. I often asked them about what I'm conveying, and they would tell me that what I'm saying is very positive, very well articulated, when inside I felt like a mess. So it's learning to be more comfortable over time.
I know the woman who, I think it's Sheryl Sandberg, who wrote Lean In. She's the, I believe, the CEO of Facebook, or the CFO. And she talked about fake it till you make it.
Absolutely,
right?
yes.
Just practice.
Good mantra.
Yeah.
And just believing in yourself. And, all people are intelligent in that, if you trust in yourself and practice, you can get better. And I do think that it's if you can get by the lack of self-confidence. And I think age has done that for me.
And you also talked about gratefulness being something that's increased
Definitely.
as you've grown. What sort of things are you aware that you're more grateful for now than, say, when you were younger?
Well, I'm more grateful now for my siblings. I'm one of 5, and throughout this process of our parents aging and moving out of their home of 58 years to an assisted living, the 5 of us are very different people, but we've come together for the common goal of our parents, and we all share that responsibility. So I'm much more grateful to them than when I was a kid. I also am grateful for my parents And I've had all this time to get through the teenage and young 20s angst with them to a point of deep respect. And I want to treat them with that respect that they showed me growing up, and how important lives are, and the intimacy and bond of, parent and children.
And then in later life of our own, we can bloom based on all those experiences. You say aging does bring a lot of opportunity to really have a clearer understanding
Yes.
of what our lives can offer to us. I call them our Zenith Years. And so how would you picture your Zenith Years? And some people that write about it talk about common things are we have to decide what to keep, what to throw away, what to do maybe that's new. I mean, really take some deep thought.
I do think for me, I'd like my Zenith Years to be number one, that I still continue to learn. Through work, I've learned to grow and become much more analytical. In my younger self, I was probably much more emotional. Now I'm a stronger thinker, problem solver. So now in my Zenith Years, I look forward to having fun and value the friendships and family that are around me. Enjoy grandchildren one day, I hope, and just be in the best health that I can be so that I can enjoy those things.
And then as we age, we also can think of our younger selves. Aging is thought to bring emotional resiliency, certainly coping with adversity. Generosity is associated with successful aging. And I think with that comes less judgment of others because we've all been pretty humbled by life.
Yes,
So-
absolutely, you're right.
So if you could write a letter to your 25 and say your 40-year-old self, what might you say?
The 25-year-old self, I would say, relax and be confident in yourself. At 25, I just recall second-guessing everything that I did. So now I would say focus on the things that are important to you and don't sweat the small stuff. For my 40-year-old self, I remember at 40 I was still pretty knee-deep in child rearing, and it was the grind, and I looked up and time had gone by. So my 40-year-old self, I would just more or less say, treasure the times that you have with your children, because they do grow, and I'm an empty nester, so the time has come and gone for me, and I look back fondly on every stage of their development, and just enjoy it, even though you're working hard at it every day.
Try to have that ability to step back.
Step back.
Or maybe hire or something, get out of the weeds a little bit.
A little bit. That grind is just so stifling at times.
Yeah, pretty consuming.
Very consuming. And then you look up and they're grown.
Yeah, well, this has been wonderful to have you share with us your story and your ideas and your insights, and
Thank you.
you've been very, very generous, and I want to thank you for that. And I asked you about a favorite quote, and you said, "Life is about using the whole box of colored pencils."
I think what I mean by that is just enjoy the whole gamut of your life and try new things and not be afraid to try new things, from one end of the spectrum to the other.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Eileen.
Thank you.
And please tune in to your other fascinating women on future segments of MidLIFE Matters. Georgian Lussier, your host. Thanks for watching.